Okay, so here's the first rule, and I've seen it violated: don't touch the friggin' locomotive. No, it's not a joke. Don't touch the locomotive. The gold leaf has not been sealed. You've noticed on the back the stencil hasn't been peeled off. Don't put your dick skinners on the friggin' locomotive. Thank you. That's it. So, there it is. It would have been done a long time ago except for boiler inspection, so I'm going to talk about that because that's what most of the questions have been. And then you can ask any other questions you want to ask. So this is a major rebuild on this boiler. This thing was taken apart as far as you can take one apart, and then put back together with new material, some new design, and some additional pieces that weren't on there, all for the purpose of making it stronger and bringing it up to modern code. That may sound funny. Riveted boilers are legal under modern code. If you have the money and the willpower, today under ASME, you can construct a riveted pressure vessel. They have never been outlawed in new construction. Anyway, so we took it all apart. Took it all apart a long time ago. When it came time to put it back together, having gotten a nice grant from the Witt Foundation, I have to plug them. I called the Department of Business and Industry in the state of Nevada, who is charged with are you leaning on my locomotive? Don't lean on my locomotive. Who are charged with the inspection of pressure vessels, boiler or otherwise, in the state of Nevada. I called them in 2010 when this was just a big pile of iron back there, and I said, this is our project, this is where we've been, this is where we're going, this is how we're going to do it. What do you guys need as far as documentation and participation in this project? And they said, well, he said, the inspector, call us when you're ready to hydro it. That's fair. And I think that's fair because, you know, over however long I've been here, I've established rapport with people that inspect boilers within the state, and typically my boiler inspections, annual inspections look like, do I need to know anything? No, inspector, you don't need to know anything. Okay, here's your document. And then wander off. And I get real nice kudos about how the care we take of our equipment, and we've made substantial repairs to other boilers, and everything's pretty happy. So in thank you. In March of 2011, that boiler inspector by the name of Bill Link came down and looked at it and said he would start a file on this locomotive and that call it when we're ready to hydro. So this year, in February, I called the Department of Business and Industry and I said, hey, we have it under hydro, I need an inspection. And on the 3rd of April, an individual came down with his buddy in tow from the Department of Business and Industry, and they walked around it. And I'll be honest with you, I think this guy was shell-shocked. And he, would you get your hands off my locomotive? Thank you. And he said, oh, I've never seen a locomotive boiler before, and I've never inspected riveted vessels. We're going to have to start a training program. We'll piggyback this with some other people. We'll do some networking, whatever catchphrases you want, and wandered out the door. He did not witness the hydro that it was under at that point in time, and wouldn't look at the boiler. Wouldn't look at the paperwork, wouldn't look at the safety valves. And the next day I got a call from his sidekick who was with the Department of the PUC, Public Utility Commission. He was a railroad safety inspector who was charged with inspection of grade crossings and signals as far as state roads impinge upon interstate railroads. And he said, oh, I'm going to inspect your boiler for you. And I said, well, I'm not sure that that's within your jurisdiction. He said, no, I'm going to write a letter to the lawyers outlining what I want to do. and they're going to grant me permission to inspect this boiler. And I explained to him, boiler inspectors are commissioned by the National Board from Columbus, Ohio. There is nobody in the United States that can inspect a boiler under code unless they're commissioned by those people. No lawyer on the face of the earth can grant you that authority. It's like a lawyer writing a letter and saying, oh, you can fly an airplane. Here's your letter granting you permission to fly an airplane. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't fly.
He was a little cranky about the whole thing. I was a little cranky about the whole thing. I've not heard from him since, and that's fine. However, I think he was good buddies with the boiler inspector because I didn't hear from the boiler inspector. So I started calling up his boss. And I said, so where are we? Well, we're looking into it. And I'd call every week for about 2 months. And it was pretty obvious that they didn't know what they were going to do. They weren't interested in doing it. And this was not going anywhere. During that period of time, they said, well, you know, the National Board of Boiler Inspection makes reference to the Federal Railroad Administration in a Form 4. We'll need one of those. I said, you know, you really don't need one of those because the FRA Form 4 rules conflict with the National Board rules in a lot of places. For instance, under National Board, I can't take my safety valves apart and set them. I send them out, somebody takes them apart, puts a little stamp on them, they come back sealed. If I break that seal, under National Board rules, that valve is invalid. Under the FRA, I'm obligated as an operator to take my valve apart every year, clean it, service it, put it back together, reset it, and sign off going, yep, that's what I did. There's a conflict right there. There's some other conflicts that have to do with strength of materials and designs. But in the interest of getting this thing pushed through, I filled out a Form 4 and mailed it off to him. Probably confused him, to be honest with you. So after about 8 weeks of this crap, I had sort of an epiphany, and it was, hey, who inspects Dan Markoff's boiler? Because he gets a state inspection as well as an FRA. So I called him, and there's a guy down in southern Nevada by the name of Steve Lemmy who inspects Dan, been doing it for a long time, speaks boiler, speaks rivets, nice guy. We've had long conversations together, wonderful individual. And in the course of it, he said, well, you know, I'll just send you some paperwork and you can look at what I have. And he sent me up a form for an application to install or reinstall a fired pressure vessel in the state of Nevada. Did the bastards in Reno ever tell me about this form? No, they didn't. So I filled it out, sent it in, got my permit. So now I'm permitted to have this boiler inspected. Why are you laughing? This is not funny.
It's ridiculous. Not funny, funny peculiar.
It's not, it's funny stupid, but yeah. So, I'm getting further and further into how the Department of Business Industry operates, which is not very well. And it gets to the point where I am at a loggerhead. I cannot get the locomotive inspected by the person in the south because the people in the southern end of the state hate the people in the north end of the state, and vice versa. So there's some line drawn through Tonopah to Ealing where they don't go there and those people don't come here. So I was out of options. So I called the administrator of the department, Peter Barton. I said, hey, go rattle somebody's cage. And he called somebody who called somebody, and they called somebody, and then all of a sudden, the guy in the south end of the state was assigned the job of inspecting this, and then the person who had wielded the club within the Department of Business and Industry got shifted over to some other department and moved around, and then the guy came up, another person retired, and this person went over there. And so we're slowly getting sort of lost in the shuffle, and the only clear line I have is Steve down in the south end of the state, who's not really sure what's going on. But to his credit, he sent me a letter, and it said, this is what we're going to do to inspect your boiler. He said, I will have all of your calculations and notes reviewed by a professional engineer who does boiler work. I said, that's great. He said, then I will come up and we'll take a day. And we will visually inspect it. We'll run a borescope on the inside. We'll UT it. We'll do some dye penetrant. We'll do a hydro. Blah, 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 blah. Should take a day. And then you'll be good. He said, I'm going on vacation though. When I get back, I'll take care of this. So he left. And he came back and he was back for a week. And then the PE went on vacation for 2 weeks. Then he came back. And then the PE got a big job and he was doing this job for gratis. So the paying job took precedence. Then we offered to pay him. And then where we are today is no further along than we were 6 months ago. And really, do I care? Yeah. Typically, I wouldn't care. I'd just go, yeah, we'll get around to it. It'll be fine. But my grant cycle is coming to an end. And the contract, the agreement of the grant is that the boiler be up and operational, locomotive be operational by the 5th of December. I'm not going to hit it. I need 60 days after I get a boiler ticket to lag it, to jacket it, to put all the gear on, to test it and proof it. And because I don't know if the injector works, to be honest with you. I've never seen it work. I assume the crosshead pump works. There's only one moving part. Well, 3. 2 check valves and a piston. But I've never seen it work. So that's where we are. In the interim, Jim Ingrams, who did the lettering at CSRM back in the 70s, and you saw photographs of him in Stan Garner's great report yesterday, is doing my lettering. I don't know. Mort's polishing things. Rick is fiddle farting around doing stuff, and we're just treading water. So I cannot tell you what the future holds, and I regret that. However, there it is. Go ahead and ask questions. Questions?
Something like the Hartford available?
Ah, thank you. So you're probably wondering why I'm going through all of this. This is a state-owned boiler. The state owns this boiler. I'm on state property. I'm not FRA. I am obligated by statute to have the installation inspection done by the state, wherein they start the paperwork. They know it exists. Then they delegate that off to contract inspectors, and ours happens to be Hartford. It was a RISE, they just changed. They change inspection companies every 2 or 3 years. So when the state inspects this, then I can ignore the state for the rest of all eternity and just have whoever our contract inspectors are. And I know the inspectors for Hartford, and I've worked with them before. And that'd be great. No, I am obligated by statute to do the first inspection through the state. Bastards.
What disaster befalls if it exceeds the time limit for the grant?
That's a great question. So here's the worst case scenario. You could argue that that would be the violation of the agreement, and we'd have to give the $250,000 back to Wigan, which we don't have a $250,000, to be honest with you. I don't think that's going to happen. It's expensive to do that. The state doesn't have the money. Wigan has already given that money away, so under its IRS obligations as a 501c3, they don't want the money back because it really muddies their books. The reality of it is what will happen is if we ever go to them again, and they're one of the big grant foundations in the state, they will say, are you kidding me? You blew the last one. Why should we give you any more money? It besmirches us. Yeah, besmirch. That's the word I used. Yeah?
Is there a way, is there somebody at the university, an engineer who's a professor, who's proficient in boilers and can be connected with the state people and then he can do it?
No. The inspector has to be, and this is a long, tenuous bureaucratic link, commissioned by the National Board of Boiler Inspectors in Columbus, Ohio, and hold that commission in the state of Nevada. And those are the only people that are granted inspection rights under state statute. And that's pretty typical for all of the states. That's a real common thing. So now, if there were a professor at UNR that had a national commission,
Maybe he could write to them and get one.
actually getting a national commission is a really easy thing to do. It just takes a long time because it's paperwork.
You're gonna get one.
You know, I've actually thought about it. You know, actually what I thought was, you know, if I really get pissed off here, I'll get my commission, I'll go work for the Department of Business and Industry.
Never have to do anything.
I never have to do anything, so.
Yeah, you'd have to go inspect crossings.
No, it's PUC.
Oh, okay.
That's different. No, actually, inspectors that don't inspect boilers inspect elevators.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Different kind of boiler.
has its
What
ups
pressure
and
does this thing run at?
This was originally built to operate at 130 pounds per square inch. And a number of years ago, this is one of the illuminating moments in my professional career. A boiler inspector from Canada came through who inspected, among other things, the Royal Hudson. And we were talking about boilers and I talked to him about the 22 up front, which operates at 75 pounds. He said, we would never do that in Canada. He said, in Canada, our philosophy is if you have a boiler and you can't get it to operate at its original design pressure, there's something wrong, fix it, or you won't run it. Boilers are not derated in Canada. They are either repaired to operational status or they are not licensed. Needless to say, we're going back to 130 pounds on this, original operating pressure. It was originally a lap seam boiler. The first two courses are triple riveted double strap butt seams. You can see the one in the front under the bell. We took the dome off. We put a liner in this boiler. It was built before the code ever existed. So they were just building, anybody that had plate riveting tools could build a boiler back then, and there was no licensing. So anyway, we put a liner under the dome and redrove all those rivets. Rebuilt the internal braces on the transition sheet. We reused, for instance, this is the extent we've gone to. So we took out the front tube sheet and we looked at it. Visually, it looked pretty good. So we sandblasted it and we dye penetrated all of the ligaments between the tube holes inside out looking for cracks, and that was good. So then we polished the edge of the sheets and we dye penetrated, inspected the edge of the sheets looking for delaminations, and put new studs in it, reamed the holes to uniform size all the way around, put it back in.
So the tube sheet was iron, this is steel.
There were iron parts on this. Well, actually, let me think. No, this whole thing is steel, but there were iron rivets. Now, on the wrapper sheet, underneath the dome, when we took that off, there's a big flange in there that doesn't do anything structurally. So I cut a coupon out and I sent it over to California, where they did a chemical analysis for carbon, among other things, and phosphorus and sulfur, which are two detrimental ones. And then they did a tensile on it, and the material came out with great numbers all the way around, documented that. So, you know, we've been religiously chasing this.
So the dome is original?
Yeah, the dome's original. And so there's some gray areas there, and you could see it, but the dome is over 24 inches in diameter. It's a single riveted lap seam. I'm going to say, yeah, so what? It's original construction. You can't do that today, but I'm not obligated to change it. The reason we changed the front two courses in the transition and the throat sheet extension was because it was badly corroded on the outside from having sat outside with asbestos against it. So.
Going back to your question about the donor, is that contract written in stone, or can you get an extension?
You know, I actually don't know anything about the politics of how this works. It's a foundation. It's the E.L. Wiegand Foundation. They write huge grants. They don't write grants for less than $250,000, which is typical. Foundations say, you know, we write grants between this dollar figure and that dollar figure. We don't write them for $1 billion, and we don't write them for $2. So Wiegand writes grants from $250,000 to $2 million, I think, and they have some criteria.
If you write
but-
them, you can get an extension. All
Oh,
grants
no,
and
I
foundations.
can't. I don't have that kind of horsepower. Within the hierarchy,
Oh.
and also foundations are not obligated to give you an extension.
No, but you can ask for one.
Oh, no, I can't. My boss can,
Oh, okay.
but I can't. So
You
that's,
need to have your boss
I'm
do
not
it.
even thinking about that. I don't care. Not my problem.
Oh.
No, I worry about other things, but I'm not going to worry about things I can't influence.
But if your boss doesn't do it, you in grant writing, which I have a lot of familiarity with, if the boss writes the letter, they'll give you most likely the extension, and the next time you go, it won't hurt you. If you just sit
Oh, I
and
understand the
don't write
subtleties
that
of that.
letter,
Yeah.
then
No, he's
yeah,
good.
they won't grant you one next time because you didn't give them.
The explanation.
The
The
Wiegand
explanation.
Foundation is actually a fairly stodgy and conservative group of people. A lot.
I'm sure they would appreciate the information why this is.
Actually, I write a quarterly report to them with photographs and rectifile spreadsheets. It's part of the contract. My boss is not. My boss's boss is constantly in contact with them. So, you know, we're working in that direction. I have no idea what he's doing, and I don't care, just so long as it all works out. I mean, really, I can't influence it, so I don't care. I told him where we are. I told him where we're going. He understands that. Actually, he was the guy that wrote the grant, so he's intimately involved in the whole thing. Yeah, I understand the concerns, but yeah.
I'd like to ask a question which you may not want to answer, and you're free not to answer it. What is
Really?
the reason
Thank
the
you.
state is fumbling around in this? Is because they don't have a clue, they don't want to appear stupid, or is there something more sinister?
Sounds like yes to all of the above.
The only way I can reasonably answer that question is through an examination of the people that apply for those positions as inspectors. The typical inspector, National Board Commissioned Inspector, is an older individual who is looking to finish off a few more years somewhere in state service through the investment of about $250 to $300 and a month of paperwork to get their national commission, hire on, work 2 years with the Department of Business and Industry, and then retire, having filled out their PERS obligation to hit 25 years or 20 or whatever it is. I know for a fact that the inspectors in this state, none of them have been around as state inspectors with a national commission more than 6 years. Most of them 2 and 3 years. They've been merchant marines, they've been power plant operators. I don't imagine one of them's been a truck driver because he's just that stupid. I hope there's nobody here that's a truck driver. I have a great deal of respect for people that drive trucks. That is a hard job, it's a responsible job. When I was saying truck drivers, I was using truck in the Indian sense, meaning to trade badly or something, I don't know. So basically, people who don't really give a damn and just want to get 2 years take this job, and there is really no motivation to doing a great job.
What has happened in the past, Chris, when you've had to inspect the 25 or the 8?
Okay, those are annual inspections.
Okay.
And the inspector shows up and he looks at it and he goes, I'm too old and too fat to get in that thing. How's it look? I'm serious.
Okay.
And I
So
go,
the difference is this is a new,
this is an installation or a reinstallation of a fired
new
pressure
construction,
vessel.
yeah. Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay.
So this is the thing, the first one has to be the state inspector, and then after that, it's the contract inspectors.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Hey, get your hands off my locomotive.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah?
Getting back to the Wiggin Foundation, they're very nice people, and they gave us a grant. It was a $50,000 grant to restore this Liberty Engine Company steam pumper. And I think the Wiggin was the guy who invented the electric hot plates, I think.
Yeah.
And, anyway, he lived in Reno.
You're dead now.
They're very nice people.
You know, it's all going to work out. It's just horribly frustrating. I've just thrown away 6 months of time waiting for some bureaucrat to get off their ass.
Okay, meanwhile, it's really nice so far.
Thanks.
How about positive? You got something positive? In addition to this positive?
Do I have something positive to say about this? Oh, this is a bitchin' engine. Are you kidding me? This is going to just be the cat's ass when it gets going. Yeah. This is a really exciting project. And it's about friggin' time, too, I might add. This has only been going on since 1983. So. Yeah, I'll give you something positive. On the paint job, I contracted with Jim Wilkie to write me a paint study on this, historic paint study, and the requirements of that were that it be a defensible paint scheme. In other words, it can be defended using whatever historic information is available, be it photographs or literature or examples on other engines. It had to have the colors in it, and the actual patterns, and he did a fantastic job on that report, and he's been up here regularly working along with the striper to get everything just dead nuts on, and I'm wonderfully impressed and quite indebted to the man for the effort he's put into this. It's exemplary. And for the same amount of money, we got a study done for the Coach 17, which, to be quite honest with you, I wouldn't wipe my ass with. So you have to be careful what you shop for.
But you wouldn't wipe your ass with the center or the coach?
Either one. Comments, questions? Come on, that's it.
Are you also going to get an FRA
No,
certification?
no, no,
Okay.
no, no.
Could you get an FRA ticket and bypass the state?
I'm obligated to have the first inspection done by the state. I can certainly go get FRA qualification for this, but it will not help the requirements under state statute. So if someone were to take this to, say, the Cumbres and Toltec and run on the eastern end of it, they would have to get an FRA inspection. But until that's actually going to happen, I'm not even going to broach that subject.
Meanwhile, you've collected the documentation that should the eventuality come up.
Oh, there's a lot of documentation. Not a big deal. That it?
Chris, did you do the ultrasound?
Which one?
The one on the pressure vessel and the dry pipe?
I did personally, and that's what I put in my engineering report that's being reviewed. So I wrote up, it was, I don't know, it's like 35 pages of notes typed out with the calculations and drawings and sundry. And that's what's being reviewed by the professional engineer. He's not obligated to verify dimensions. He's just looking at my numbers and making sure the calculations are valid,
Right.
and that the numbers that are supplied actually work within those calculations. It is the inspector's responsibility to come up and UT and otherwise measure to verify that the numbers that I supplied to the PE are accurate. I'm thinking, I'm not really worried about it, it'll be great. I'm not going to tell them where the defects are. There are no defects. How would we know if they're defects? It's never been inspected. It's perfect. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I bought a UT machine a number of years ago, and I have a Magnaflux and all sorts of things. I have one. It's an ultrasonic air leak finder. Have you ever seen one of those?
No.
Oh yeah, those are très sexy.
I'd just like to say the most beautiful part of this engine, in my opinion, is inside the cab. If you look at that brass work, what is this John done? It's outstanding in every respect.
Don't catch it.
It's got yeah. So thanks, Jim. Funny story. So a long time ago, I had tricock castings done by a foundry in California. They've been sitting around on the shelf because at one point in time, I thought we were going to actually work on this. So we machined them up. We screwed them into the back head valves, the stems, and the whole 9 yards, and put them up there. And then we put it under hydro. And those castings were so porous that water poured out of the casting. It's like, it was bizarre. The foundry has since gone out of business. I think I know why. I don't know, what else can we say? The oil cups on the back head are off the Eric Thompson drawings, Baldwin drawings from the Eric Thompson collection. They're functional. They'll be keyed into the lube lines off the back of the hydrostatic lubricator. Just in case somebody wants to fiddle around with them, I personally think they're dangerous as hell.
That's why the railroads didn't keep them very long.
Yeah, and I don't know. Oh, the water glass fittings are also off of the Thompson drawings. The FRA requires 2 water glasses. They don't require tricocks anymore, and those water glass fittings do not meet FRA requirements because you cannot run a steel rod all the way through the valve to verify that it's clear. A little labyrinthian valve down in the lower glass, which I'm going to ignore. But so there's some, you know, things in there that are questionable, but we'll just ignore it.
Will the FRA allow you to substitute the tricox for the second glass?
No, you are obligated currently to have 2 glasses.
And 2 steam gauges.
And a depth, how deep's the water in your tender gauge?
2 cigarette lighters?
No cigarette lighters. Yeah.
Nice throttle quadrant.
So, let's see, what else we got going on?
I am mildly surprised at the nickel edging on the running boards and so forth.
Oh, that's not nickel. That's polished iron.
Hot iron?
Oh yeah, and if you touch it, it will rust. Because it is not clear coated. No, that's
You
polished.
will clear coat it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The staff has been treated with graphite.
Yeah, so, I don't know. That it? Wander around, keep your fingers off my locomotive. Show yourself. If you have any questions, I'll be hanging around. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I can get too close to give me a clip I forgot my people
You know, you're not ever supposed to move your camera around. You're supposed to keep the camera still. And yeah. The guy that just died gradually. There's a name from North So I make water.
Mine.
So it's really good to see it this far along.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's not
Surprised
done,
me.
it's still better than all the years.